Hello and welcome to Entrepreneurs Unplugged.
It's our voice.
Our event tonight is co-sponsored by the Atlas Institute and also Silicon Flatirons. And we are very fortunate tonight to have Heidi Ganahl as our featured entrepreneur. I think we're in for a real treat. My name is Karen Deerhoy. I am the co-founder of Blackwood Finance and Accounting. We expanded our business here about 18 months ago from North Carolina, and right away got involved in the entrepreneur community with our support of Silicon Flatirons, the Entrepreneurship Initiative, as well as CU's New Venture Challenge. So we are really thrilled to be involved in events like tonight. Also want to point out a new supporter, and that is Pearl Street Legal. We have Ted Bitterman here tonight. Please say hello and get to meet him and join him into our community. And of course, we want to thank all the other sponsors, supporters, patrons who make events like this possible and are really the backbone of this community. So a few things before we get started with the real program, which are customary and kind of our introductions. We want to open up the floor for any announcement for community events. So if you have an announcement of an upcoming event, please raise your hand and we'll start on this side of the room and go across. So anybody?
So I'm David Klein. I work with an organization here in Boulder called Spark Boulder. It's a student-focused entrepreneurial workspace. So it's a co-working space similar to like Hub or CoLab, I think, or a couple others. But we're a nonprofit, and so we offer student rates growing in January. So student rates as low as $20 a month. Community rates as low as $100 a month, which are definitely below what the market is in this area for a co-working desk. So check us out, sparkboulder.com. If you want to apply for a space, it's sparkboulder.com/apply, or come find me after you go. Thank you.
Anybody else?
New Tech meetup tomorrow night in the law school, 6:15. And then the next crash course is going to be on strategic partners. That's November 19th, 6:15. Bill Moose and Doug Smith are going to be leading that, again, November 19th.
All right, anything else? All right, we also like to take a few seconds to get an idea of who's in the room tonight. So those of you who are from the campus community, if you could just raise your hands.
Students count.
Students, faculty, donors. Okay, so maybe everybody else who is in the community at large, raise your hands as well so we get an idea of how many that is. I'm not sure if there's any other communities to be represented, but also like to get an idea of anybody who is a first-timer or newcomer. That's great, welcome. All right, so our last little meet and greet item we have for tonight is to take about a minute and turn to someone next to you or close to you that you have not already met and introduce yourself.
Alexa.
Hi.
Now that you're getting comfortable, you're just going to start telling jokes for a while.
have a lively group here tonight. All right, if you can, if I can get your attention back. All right, this is great. I will note that afterwards there will be a reception with refreshments outside here, so if you want to continue your networking and also the conversation, please remain afterwards and stick around. So, for our event tonight, I want to start by announcing our moderators. We have Brad Bernthal, who is the Director of the Entrepreneurship Initiative at Silicon Flatirons. And we also have Jill Dupre, who is the Interim Director here at the Atlas Institute. They will lead about a 45-minute conversation with our entrepreneur, Heidi. And then after that, we will open up the floor for Q&A with the audience. And we'll let that go as long as you will do that, and then, of course, adjourn to the refreshments. So I have the honor of making the introduction for Heidi Ganahl. She is the embodiment of the entrepreneurial spirit. She has started her own business. She has grown it to be the industry leader. She has been named on virtually every list out there for fast growth companies. She's been the recipient of multiple awards. She's been featured on numerous TV shows, news stories, and a variety of periodicals and publications. She's also started her own charity foundation to promote the causes that she cares about. And all that while balancing the demands of career and life responsibilities. Pretty impressive. Each of those achievements alone is pretty incredible, collectively amazing. However, as we all know, success rarely comes without adversity and hardship. So what is even more amazing about Heidi is that she has endured the extremes in hardship, adversity, including personal tragedy and near financial ruin. Through hard work and perseverance, she has taken her dream and her love of dogs and turned it into a highly successful franchise business. Also along the way, Heidi has been known as an authentic and genuine business leader who really understands the things in life that are really important. So tonight we have Heidi on her old stomping ground. She is a graduate of CU Boulder with a degree in business. Since 2000, she has been the founder and CEO of Camp Bow Wow. Camp Bow Wow is a franchise business that provides lodging in a camp-style setting for dogs. They can go to day camp, overnight boarding, training sessions, and there's also in-home pet services that are provided as well. Today, Camp Bow Wow is a $40 million business. It is the leader in the pet care services industry, and there are more than 200 franchises in the U.S. and Canada. Heidi's charity, Bow Wow Buddies Foundation, promotes dog fostering, dog adoption, as well as the awareness of healthy and humane treatment of animals worldwide. Noteworthy in Heidi's success would be her strengths in the following areas: her use of technology to build her business, the use of innovative approaches and ideas, and also the way that she has tapped into her background in marketing and brand building. Another strength is that she generously shares her time and wisdom with audiences like us. So with that, please join me in welcoming Heidi Ganahl.
Thank you for that, Karen. And I think that we've got a new first in terms of Entrepreneurs Unplugged introductions. That was the first one that was actually memorized. So that was particularly appreciated. Heidi, if you could add just a little bit more color in terms of where Camp Bow Wow is today. We're going to wind you back here in a little bit, but Karen said $40 million, that's top line revenue?
Actually, we're at about $70 million this year.
Okay, 70.
I think I haven't updated my speaking website in a while, so that's my fault, Karen. But yeah, so we'll do about 70 million in system sales this year.
And how many franchises do you have at this point, or franchisees?
A couple hundred. So.
And locations?
We have 120 camps open, or about 50 home buddies, which is the in-home pet care open, and then about another 35 to 40 in development. So they're in site search or zoning and all that good stuff. So.
She mentioned industry leader. What's the competition and what's the market share look like?
Oh boy, it's a $60 billion business, the pet industry is now. It beats out, I think it's like music and toys and video games all combined. People love their animals, and it's actually growing at 8 to 10% a year, especially in the services segment, which we're a big part of. And my awesome intern is here, Tristan. He may be able to tell us, what percentage are we of that segment? Do you know, Tristan? He's like my numbers guru. I think it's 2% of the services segment that Camp Bawa is, but I'm sorry to do that, Tristan.
Tristan, the answer is I'll get that to you ASAP.
Yeah. But we're definitely, there's not a lot of competition for us other than mom and pops out there. They're kind of copying us or doing the same thing, which makes it a lot of fun. We get to do a lot of really innovative, cool stuff without worrying too much about who's right on our tails.
So I want to wind us back a little bit to your time here at CU. Did you come to CU knowing I wanted to start a business?
Oh gosh, no. I came here to probably party and have a good time. No, I knew I wanted to be in business, and I actually wanted to be an advertising account executive, like the Ally McBeal of old days. I really thought that was my niche, and I had
You want to have a humiliating moment? Should we ask how many people know who Ally McBeal is?
No, don't do that.
Sorry.
It's a really old show. But yeah, I love advertising and branding and PR, and I still to this day, that's the part of the business I love. So I graduated with a marketing degree, and then actually went out to California and got a job at an ad agency as a secretary, making some ridiculously low amount, and worked my way into junior account executive, and I thought I was the coolest thing since sliced bread. Living the high life out in Southern California, and then got a job at a bigger agency, being an account manager on some big accounts, including Yamaha Music and Lincoln Savings and Loan, which would age me too, when the savings and loan industry went bad. But then I was trying to live the high life a little too well out in Southern California, ran up all my credit cards, and was like, oh, I'm out of money, and I'm not making enough in advertising, so I'm going to go back to Colorado. So I ended up coming back a few years later. And there weren't a lot of ad agencies back then in Colorado. There's a lot of big ones now, but I struggled and couldn't find a job in advertising, so I got a job in pharmaceutical sales.
And so looking back, even before college, any signs of entrepreneurial activity that this could be in the future?
Yeah, now that I look back, definitely. I mean, I was always coming up with some grand plan to, create some business or do something to, create money-making opportunities in my neighborhood. Or, I did all the typical pet sitting businesses and lemonade stands and all that good stuff. But in high school, I was just always really, I was always interested in creative, really big things. I didn't want to do anything small. I always had to go big. If I was going to run for student council, I had to run for president. Or if I was going to, play soccer, I had to be the top player. And I always had that mentality. So. What
was the biggest success along those lines and the biggest fail?
Well, the biggest success, growing up. You mean growing up?
Yeah.
We brought soccer to Colorado. My family did. I was from Southern California, and when I was 12 years old, my parents brought us here and moved us to Monument, which is tiny, or it was even tinier back then. And nobody had heard of American Youth Soccer Organization, or it's called AYSO, and nobody even knew what a soccer ball looked like in Colorado. So my dad and mom started the first soccer league in Colorado and started AYSO, and it grew to be really big.
Was this their professional, or is this what they did for a profession, or
no,
is this kind of a hobby?
Just as a hobby.
No kidding.
Yeah. And they were always about giving back. No matter what we did in our family, we were always taught, we are so blessed, and we never had a lot of money. We were very conservative, and my dad worked 3 jobs until I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old to support the family. And but they always said there's always time to give back. So that was probably the proudest thing of my family and that I accomplished as a young person. And then
How good were you at soccer?
not very good. Not good enough to play in college. I mean, I was good in high school only because it was such a new team and it was so new to the state. But
And what was one big swing that didn't work out?
oh gosh, there's been so many. I ran for student council. I didn't make it my first year. I tried out for cheerleading, but then I tried again and I made it. And I mean, I had a lot of missteps along the way. And what my mom and dad taught me, and I had a great family, actually, my grandparents, I had a lot of strong women in my family. And they all taught me, failure is just a stepping stone. Like, don't take it personally, just move on, keep trying, do better next time. And I have lots of examples of that throughout my life.
So were they encouraging, talk us forward, when did you decide to start this company?
Oh gosh, well it goes back to 1994 when I was married to my first husband, and his name was Bayan. Like he always used to say Bayan, like buying me a beer. His parents were these 60s love children, and it means like some weird thing like strength and energy. And he was super entrepreneurial and very creative and always pushing me and really supportive of me. And he knew I was bored to death in pharmaceutical sales. And right next to my dad's business, my dad opened his own business down in Parker, was one of the first doggy daycares in the United States. And I thought it was the coolest idea. And Brian and I would go over and hang out and watch these dogs milling around in this warehouse and be like, this is crazy. Why aren't they killing each other? Or, why aren't they escaping? Or, there should be blood everywhere. It's just nuts. And it was really fun. And we asked the gal, Debbie, if she wanted to franchise. And she said no. She just wanted her one place, but to feel free and do what I needed to do. So I took that to heart. So I built the business plan, Brian and I did together, and he was just finishing up his last year at UC Denver and working for my dad at the same time. And we've been together about 4 years, been married a couple years, and for his 25th birthday, my dad ran into an old friend of his who was a United Airlines pilot, and he did air shows. And so he said, hey, I want to take you up, Harv, in one of these biplanes that I do the air shows in. And my dad was like, yeah, that'd be great. And I want to bring my son-in-law because he's a real daredevil and he would love it. And his birthday's coming up. So they went down as a surprise and took him up in the airplane, and Brian went first. They did all the stunts, and I didn't go for some reason. We had this silly community garage sale in our neighborhood, which I normally wouldn't be participating in. But for some reason, I decided we needed to get rid of a lot of stuff that weekend. And so my parents were there, and they went to do a flyby after they'd done all the stunts, and they went to tip the wing so they could take a good picture, and it just dove right into the ground. And they both died on impact right in front of my parents. And obviously that changed everything for me. And I had been laid off from a pharmaceutical company. That was when Hillary Clinton was trying to change healthcare, which would date me as well. And so we were going through lots of ups and downs in the pharmaceutical industry. So here I was, I didn't have a job. I didn't have my husband, who I adored. He was just my best friend. And my family was in huge turmoil. And I just froze up. I didn't know what to do. And
you were young. You were 20.
I was 27. And I'd never, I'd always had such like a great, blessed life. Like I called myself like the all-American kid. Like I kind of pushed through and did whatever I wanted to accomplish. And next step was having 2.5 kids and, getting to be a district manager in pharmaceutical sales or whatever. And it just threw everything for a loop. And I was really lost at that point. So.
What did you do?
Well, my dogs got me up out of bed every day. I had two big mutts, Mick and Winnie, who were just awesome. I got one from Boulder Humane Society, one from Table Mountain, back when that existed. And, they still wanted to go out and play ball, and they still wanted to go on walks, and so they got me out the door. And then one of my friends suggested I be a puppy raiser for Canine Companions for Independence, which is the wheelchair, the dogs for folks in wheelchairs. And they said, oh, it'll be like 6 months before you get a dog, so just sit tight. They called me a week later and said, this is really weird, but we got a golden retriever puppy that's 8 weeks old, and it was actually born on the day of the plane crash. And I was like, that's weird. So that's kind of quinky-dink. I should go with it. So I did, and what Ori was the name of the dog did for me was I had to get out there to train her. I mean, you have to take them everywhere with you. So I had to take her to the grocery store, to the airport. And what do people do when you're carrying around an 8-week-old golden retriever puppy? I mean, they're all over you. So it made me re-engage in life and kind of talk to people again and get excited again about just being out in the world. So that was, I ended up attempting to raise her for a handicapped person, but she flunked out because she got in a fight with a dog over a bone when she was about 1 year old. And it took me a while to realize, but she was actually my angel. She came into my life to change things for me. And eventually that's who I started the Bow Buddies Foundation for, because she died of cancer when she was 12 years old. So that's how the Bow Buddies Foundation came about. So
It's an experience that few of us can imagine. How long did it take to work through the grief?
Okay. I'm still working through it, honestly. It's something that never goes away. I tell people it's like losing a limb. You just get used to it and you learn to live with it, and it changes forms a lot. But I mean, it's been a crazy ride since then, and my life has turned out so far different than I ever imagined. But, you know, good things do come out of grief. It teaches you tremendous lessons, and it teaches you tremendous respect for life and for getting up every day and getting the opportunity to do what you love. And so it really smacks you around. And I don't know that my life would have turned out. I don't know what I would have done if that hadn't happened. I probably would still be in pharmaceutical sales and have the 2.5 kids. And
in addition to working through an incomprehensibly difficult and emotional time, there's economic realities as well. And talk us through the process in the wake of your husband's passing in terms of the economics and the reality of it.
Yeah, this is where things get a little bizarre. So Brian was, like I said, 25, and the insurance company, since it was our close family friends plane, I didn't sue them or anything. I mean, I just was ready to kind of move on and let things go. And we had a small life insurance policy, so I felt like, you know, I could manage. And the wife of the pilot pushed to negotiate a settlement for me from the plane company and got me $1 million check from the plane crash the company that had the plane. And so I'm 27 years old. I'm out of work, and 3 months after this crash, I get a check for $1 million. And I've never had money in my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, this is crazy. But with that came tremendous guilt. I mean, Brian and I always had such big dreams and plans, and we wanted to do such cool things. And I was like, I don't want to do it alone. I don't want to do it without you. And people would say the craziest things. They'd come up and be like, well, at least you got the money, or at least, you know, that'll help you get past it or move on. And you want to punch them. I mean, it's just like, this is not how I wanted to get money.
Yeah.
And what I learned later is psychologically, you make a decision to almost get rid of the money. About 75% of people who receive sudden wealth is what it's called, which is $500,000 or more in sudden settlement or lottery winnings, whatever, lose it within 3 years.
Wow.
And most of it's psychological, which I look back and say, you know, I had a business degree from CU. I'd always managed my money pretty well, other than running up the credit cards in California. You know, I just did a horrible job of managing the money. I had loaned money to family and friends. Everybody came out of the woodwork, and it's true that you really do.
People are coming and borrowing money at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, like daily. People are calling me. Saying, you know, can I just borrow $10,000, or I have a really good idea for a business, or I'm in a really tight place. Can I just have, you know, $500 or $1,000? And you start just saying, yeah, sure, because you're like, well, I don't really deserve this money, and I don't really.
And it seems like so much. If
Yeah.
you're not used to having money, it seems like, sure, I have all
Back
this
then,
money.
$1 million did seem like a lot of money. And people would tell you, financial advisors would tell you, this will last your whole life. Like, you don't have to work again, which is bunk. Unless, you know, you were some magician and knew exactly how to invest it and how to live very disciplined. So the next thing I did wrong was I went to my 10-year high school reunion and ran into one of my best friends from high school who was, I'd known him since 7th grade, and we started dating and got married quickly on the rebound and had my teenage daughter, Tori. And it was a disaster. He was an alcoholic and had drug addiction issues that I didn't realize. I should have, but I didn't, because I wanted so badly just to get back to normal life. Like, I'm going to get married again and have a kid and like get back on track. And ended up only married for a year, and then in a 5-year custody battle over his addiction issues, and used about $500,000 from the settlement on that alone. And so for the next few years, I struggled. I got back into pharmaceutical sales, which was boring as all get out to me. I called it the golden handcuffs. Like, you make really good money and have a company car, but it's so boring. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to discourage you from going that way.
Listen, and you've got a daughter to support now, too.
Yeah. So I have a little daughter to support, and I have $80,000, $83,000 left to be exact, in a variable annuity policy, which is a retirement vehicle, so you can't take it out without horrible penalties and paying taxes. So I was stuck.
Where were you living?
I was living in Parker still, and then I ended up moving to Monument, back to Monument where my folks lived, so that they could help me with Tori, and I knew a lot of people down there. So it was not good being back on Monument. Like, I was just known as, Heidi, and my husband, who, the one that I divorced, was very well known in Monument too. He's like, football star in high school and stuff. So it was a really weird existence down there.
What year are we?
That was, let's see, Tori was born in 95. So all this happened within like a year and a half after the plane crash. And then I was divorced like by end of 97. I mean, I guess we were almost married 2 years. And then went through the custody battle. And then 2000 rolls around and my little brother comes to me and is like, "You're a mess. Like, you need to get your act together. Like, what happened to the Heidi with all the big dreams and aspirations?" And so Patrick said, "What if we dig out the old Camp Bow Wow business plan?"
What was your response when your brother comes and says this in 2000?
I was like, "You're not a single mom. You don't get it. Like, there's no time to do this. And I don't have any money left. Like, the little bit of money I have left, I'm not going to risk that." He's like, "You're going to be fine, Heidi." He said, "I really have a good feeling. Like, I think this is what you're meant to do."
Did you get input from other family members or friends?
Yeah, everybody thought I was crazy. Like, seriously, Heidi, come on. My last business, I tried a couple businesses in the meantime. One was a baby bedding catalog company called Nursery Works. After I had Tori, I was like, there's no good choices for all these little matching cute bedroom sets. Well, I found out that pregnant women are really grumpy and not very fun to deal with as clients. So I was like, this is not a fun business. So I think I blew $100,000 on that business. And then I, ironically enough, got my certified financial planner designation because I was going to manage this money better and make up for it and keep other people from making the mistakes that I made. But what I didn't factor in is that I felt guilty charging people money to help them because I had been taken advantage of the same way. So I was like, "I'll just help you for free," So I wasn't making a living at it. But I ended up using that actually when 9/11 happened. I got to go out and help some families through it. So it ended up being really rewarding in a way, but it's not something I used to.
Just not financially.
Yeah, not financially.
So was there one pivotal moment when you say, "I'm going to take the old business plan and start this company"?
Yeah. I mean, my brother, I think he took me out for a beer and just said, "It's time, let's do this." And I was like, "All right, we're going to give it 2 weeks. And if we don't find a place," because I knew finding a place would be really tough. And so we went out and looked, and we found this old veteran foreign war hall. Do you guys know where Herman's Hideaway, is that still around, like on Antique Row off Santa Fe, Mississippi? It's down like just south of downtown Denver. Like, we all used to go to Herman's Hideaway a lot, watch bands play and stuff. But anyway, it was right across the street. It was disgusting. It was like a 2,000 square feet old building. We had to scrub it down and get it all fixed up. But we did that, and we negotiated, for whatever reason, we negotiated a 6-month out on the lease, and the guy went for it. And come to find out, that was my first experience with zoning. About 6 months into running the business, it was doing really well. And this guy walks in, and he's like, "I'm from the city of Denver, and what are you doing here?" I'm like, "Doggy daycare?" He's like, "I still don't know what you're doing here. Come on down to the city." And dragged me down by the ear down to the city zoning
Took
department.
you with him.
Oh, yeah. He said, "You're not allowed to be doing this. I don't understand what you're doing with all these dogs." And so he flips through all his paperwork, and I said, but the real estate broker said it was fine. Like, we could do whatever we wanted here. I was like, yeah, first lesson, don't trust commercial real estate brokers that are eager for a commission. And so he starts flipping through the book, and he goes, "All right, I think I figured it out. It's warehousing of commodities, and the commodities are pets." It's just like, okay, whatever works for you. And then he was this grandfatherly guy, and he's like, "I'm going to save you from yourself, though. We're going to limit the number of dogs that you can have so you don't get bit or killed to 10 a day." I was like, I can't make money doing that. And so luckily, my dad found another building just a couple blocks away, which is right behind Breakfast King on Santa Fe, Mississippi, and it's still the original Camp Bow, or the semi-original Camp Bow Wow, right next door. So we got out of that lease, moved over there, and the cool thing is there we could do boarding, and that's where we built out the first like lodgepole fencing and made it look like a camp.
So the whole family's involved in helping you. They got on board.
Yes, and that was a theme that I probably should not have continued. At one point, when we were growing our quickest, like in 2006 and 2007, I had 40 people working for me, of which 10 were family members. It was very challenging. So now I have no family members working for me, which is probably a good thing. They've all landed softly, though. I've all made
They
sure.
all speaking to you?
Yes. My brother and I fired each other, I think, 3 times over those years. But he was not a big people person. In fact, I have a cute story. We were at the very first building, and I was like, okay, Pat, I've got the Rocky Mountain News is coming to do an article on us. Like, this is huge. And he's like, whatever, I'm not talking to the guy. You get over here to talk to him. Because he was all about the dogs, not people. And so I walk into the sound of my brother yelling, hey, no humping allowed, to a group of dogs. And the reporter's standing there, and I'm like, I can't believe you just said that in front of the Rocky Mountain News. So that was the title of the article, No Humping Allowed at Camp. But he did, when we moved into the new building, came up with a brilliant idea that I will forever give him credit for. He's a sound engineer now, so he ended up following his passion. But he put up this thing called an X10 camera up on one of the poles, and it was the first webcam in a pet care facility in the United States. And it was brilliant. And it would take a picture every 60 seconds and post it to the internet, so you'd have to stand there and hold the dog. And people would be like, can you just hold my dog up to the camera until it takes? And they'd be like, oh, I don't like that picture. Can you do it again? You're holding this crazy lab trying to get it to click.
What year was the X10?
That was 2001.
All right, so really early on. Talk a little bit more about the dynamic with you and your younger brother. What did he bring to the table? What did you bring to the table? And in terms of early founder dynamics, what worked and what, in retrospect, did you need to bring in after that?
Well, even though we fired each other a lot, it did work actually really well. He was all about the operations, making sure the place was like clean and that the customers felt really good and the day-to-day like operations were there and like the people showed up on time. He definitely needed some management training. Like he'd just yell at people. Like I didn't think that was good leadership. And I'm like, no, Pat, you can't do that. But he ended up being a really good manager after a couple of years of this. And I was out doing the marketing. I mean, I spent weekend after weekend and evening at Wash Park handing out dog bones and flyers with Tori, my little one. And that's how we marketed Camp Bow Wow. And we went and visited veterinarians, and they thought we were crazy still. Like, they still didn't believe it was workable to have these dogs play. But
so what would that conversation look like? You'd come into the vet and say, I'm Heidi from Camp Bow Wow.
And they'd be like, Camp what? And you'd say, you know, we're one of the first doggy daycare centers in Colorado, and it's a place where dogs can play and interact and see their friends. And they'd be like, that's ridiculous. They're going to bite each other and kill you. And I don't know why they didn't get that dogs are pack animals and that it would naturally make sense to do that.
But how did you have that confidence to say all these experts are saying this can't be done?
I don't know, Jill. It was weird. I think we had this just cocky, like we knew it was really cool. We knew from the dogs. Like you just walk in and the dogs would be having such a great time. You couldn't deny it. And you were like, there's nothing bad going on here. I mean, yeah, you had your tiffs every once in a while, but once you figured out how to group the dogs together and who didn't get along with who, it was just like daycare. I mean, there are kids they don't like and kids they do like, and it was the same thing.
What marketing worked?
The Wash Park definitely worked, hanging out at the parks and just handing flyers to people and always giving people a free day. Like they had to come experience it. And once they did, they were hooked. And they always wanted to watch their dogs on the internet. Like that worked really, really well, the webcams, because people for the first time could actually see their dogs having fun instead of wondering if the people weren't lying to them and saying, yeah, your dog had a great time, and they were stuck in a kennel the whole time. So.
And you couldn't have much money for the marketing.
No. That whole $83,000 went really quickly, and it was all grassroots. It was, the other thing we did was we had these crazy fundraising events every month. And so we'd pick a charity like Max Fund or Dimmer Dumb Friends League or one of the local pet charities, and we'd have a fundraiser for them. And we had Punk for Pets, because my brother had a band, a really bad band, and Music for Mutts we did at the Bluebird Theater and did a fundraiser there. And then we had Fido Formal for Valentine's Day, where we let people keep their dogs there till like 2 a.m. to go on date night. So we always had some crazy charity scheme, and people loved it. Like that was the big differentiator early on between the other early doggy daycares, I think.
That people were associating Camp Bow Wow with good causes associated with pets. That was a branding element that you believed in as well.
Exactly. And I mean, they would come to Camp Bow Wow to these events and then see how cool the environment was and be like, I have to bring my dog. And the other thing that happened early on was the Rocky Mountain News article did a lot, but we just got some great PR early on. Like these events we were doing were really getting some buzz out in the community. And the Denver PR community was really kind to us. And it taught us a lesson really early on that, the media is really powerful. And it ended up after we opened our second camp in Broomfield, next to the animal doctor, we were sitting around the computer, or actually we had started franchising. And I hadn't really ever planned on franchising. It was just something that happened because one of my clients at Broomfield was in franchising for Mrs. Fields Cookies and said, hey, this is a really cool concept. Nobody's doing it in the pet space. You should do this. There was Barkbusters doing dog training and Aussie Petmobile doing grooming. And so we're like, okay, I knew nothing. I maxed out another credit card and maxed out my home equity and paid for what was then called the UFOC, which is the legal documentation and around franchising. And we put 2 signs up on either counter at the camps and sold our first franchise within like a week. And I was like, wow, this is really cool.
To a customer coming in?
To a customer, to Nancy, who ended up owning the Castle Rock franchise. So we'd been selling franchises for about a year at this point. Things were plugging along. I think we'd sold like 10 or 15 maybe. And all of a sudden, I had one other person helping me on the corporate team who ended up being she was one of my best friends from my marriage to buy-in, and she ended up embezzling from me. So I had to sue her to get the part of the company back. It was really crazy. But the point of the story was we were sitting there, and all of a sudden the phone starts ringing off the hook one day. And we're like, why are we getting all these calls about franchising? This is crazy. Like literally just pummeled with calls. It's like that commercial where you sit around the computer where they're all sitting around. They're like, yeah, we got our first order. And then it goes crazy, and they're like, oh, what do we do? And come to find out, America Online had picked up this tiny little article where I had sat next to this franchising writer at some conference, and she'd written this little blurb on Business Week Online, and it got picked up, and we were the next great franchise on the cover of America Online back when AOL was like, the cool thing. So that was like 2005. And we got over 3,000 franchise sales leads from that one day.
Did you have a legal team in place who was helping you with the franchise agreements?
We had, we worked with, one of the things I did do right was I got really good legal counsel from day one. And that's one of the things that people recommended, that if you're going to invest money in anything, you invest in that to protect your intellectual property and your contracts, and ended up being a really good decision. But.
So you've mentioned a couple times putting basically it all on the line, whether it's maxing out a credit card or the last amount of from the settlement, especially when you put it on the line for the franchise. What was your plan B? Did you think that if this doesn't work, then here's what I'll do?
Oh, there's always old pharmaceutical sales again. No, I was really hoping that didn't happen. I was never worried about Camp Bow Wow. Like, I always knew. I can remember sitting on the floor opening our second location in Broomfield. We always cut it so close with grand openings because they never opened when it was supposed to, but we always made this drop-dead deadline, day that we were going to have the grand opening. And nothing was done the night before. The floor wasn't even laid, and I was laying tile, and it was pouring rain. We couldn't get the fencing put up outside. It was crazy. USC was playing CU because I remember it was this horrible game where, I don't know, something really bad happened. Like, we lost really bad. But anyway, that's how I remember, by CU games over the years. Do you guys do that? But anyway, I remember thinking, everything's going to be fine. This is going to be a really cool thing. I just knew at that point. I don't know why I knew, because I was completely broke and everything was invested in the business, and it was only my second location, but I just had a really calm sense about it.
I've got this vision based on the fact that I have been a customer of yours, that you have wildly enthusiastic team, dog lovers working for you. Was it that way from day one? And what did you learn about managing people as you're starting to build the company?
Oh my goodness, Brad, it was a crazy ride. Crazy ride. Yes, I've always had really passionate, wonderful dog people helping me build the company. But but those aren't always necessarily the best people for business, and they don't always make the best business decisions around what's good for the franchisees. And we have the saying, don't put the dollar before the dog. And so we kind of drive our business that way. And we try and make it all about the safety, healthy, happiness of the pets. But as the business grew, what was hard about having the family involved too was you outgrow people's skill sets, and you have to bring people in and put them above other people. And that's super, super challenging. But I think that at the end of the day, just using the golden rule was always my theory. Like, how would I want to be treated if I was somebody else? And I always tried to honor my word. Like, I love that book, The Four Agreements. It's like, don't assume, do your best, and your word is impeccable is my favorite one. And always just remember what you tell people and try and honor it, and don't go back on your word.
And so were you careful about not giving your word about you're having a job forever? Or when you realized this isn't a good fit, how did you approach it?
That's a good point. It depended on the situation. I mean, the economy, even though it was terribly difficult when the recession hit because all the SBA financing dried up, and we went from selling 6 or 7 franchises a month to selling 0. And that's $50,000 a franchise fee. And so I'm supporting a team of 40 people, and all of a sudden the money just dries up. And so at that opportunity, I had to say goodbye to a few people because they knew there wasn't the money to pay the salaries. And then as like a camp would come available, like a franchisee failed, so I asked my aunt and uncle if they'd like to move back to California and do that instead. And so I just tried to find the right timing for those things. And I tried to do everything I could in my power to make it work, honestly. I'd send them to leadership training or try and get them the management skill training. And I almost tried too hard. Like, I'd shift them around to different positions, knowing that it probably wasn't going to work. So I was very, very loyal to the people that worked for me. But I also was very just understanding of the business sense of it. Like, there's only so many dollars to go around. And if franchisees aren't happy with the way you're supporting them, you've got to come up with a different plan. So,
is it now a hard and fast rule, no family?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Talk a little bit more about the decision to go the franchise route. There had to be other options, one of which would be just stay to the franchise or the company that I own, as opposed to being willing to do it. And did you know how legally complicated franchising would be when you made the choice to go that route?
Heck no. No, I was so naive, and nobody shook me and said, oh my God, you're about to enter legal hell. Like, I kid around with people that franchising is another term for pay the attorneys and accountants all your money. It's just crazy. You've got to have attorneys for intellectual property and for franchising and for contract and for litigation and for just all kinds of stuff. And Becca's sitting in the audience, who was our first general counsel for Camp Awa, and she was amazing. Like, Becca she could learn any particular area like within a couple days, and she'd be like, shoot, okay, I've got it down. And we used experts where we had to, but she was always so nimble and just provided us with this like, we'll just figure it out. Like, we don't need one of those big shiny law firms to help us through all of this. And a lot of it was just common sense. And a lot of poor Becca, I mean, I had the peacock feathers going a lot. Like, we're just going to act really big and really, I remember one franchise attorney that we were negotiating on a franchise sale, and the attorney said, I don't know if you remember this, Becca, was like, who do you think you are, McDonald's or something? And we had like 25, 30 units at the time. I was like, well, we're going to be McPuppy, And Becca would just go with the flow, and she'd give them hell and get us through the negotiation. And to this day, attorneys look at our legal documents, and they're just like, damn, you guys did a really good job for being as small as you were,
I was her roommate at the time. She spent a lot of evenings on it.
Yeah, and she helped us start the foundation, too. I met Becca at a fundraiser at the Camp Awa Boulder. She had just gotten back from Greece and was horrified by what was going on over there with the treatment of animals and dogs. And she's like, oh my God, you've got to do something about this, like through Camp Bow Wow. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And she helped us set up a trip with me and 2 other employees to Greece. And we went on this animal welfare rescue mission to Greece for 2 weeks. And Becca mapped it all out for us and introduced us to the right people. And we ended up bringing back 26 what we call Greekies, Greek street dogs, with us. We smuggled them on the airplane. She sat on the. It was crazy. We got 11 of them under the compartments and then 6 of them under the seats. And we had to convince the Greek government and the Lufthansa authorities that we owned all these dogs because Greek dogs, the Greek government considers them their property. But we had such a great time with the people over there and we're so heartwarmed by all the efforts they were making. And they took us out to dinner a couple nights before we left and gave us ouzo and we're like, can you take some dogs back? We're like, sure. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. But we found homes for all of them and they were amazing. One of them was named Boozer because he was owned by a group of gypsies that fed him wine every night. I don't know if you remember this still. The poor dog was just crazy, and we loved him to death. But yeah, it was quite an adventure. But that's how the Bawa Buddies Foundation started. And then we also had the Ori Project, which was because of my dog Ori, which is a partnership with a Canine Cancer Center up at CSU. And so we melded the two, and that's where we came up with the idea for this overarching foundation that would, solve all the world's troubles around animals.
Let's come back to the foundation piece, because that's obviously been going back to the start of Camp Bow Wow, really in the DNA of your company.
Yes.
But in terms of franchising, at what point were you willing to let go of control? Right? I mean, it's your brand, your name, and how have you been able to manage that challenge of other people running the franchises and you having to at least release some degree of control? It's
so hard. I mean, it's your baby, and you have to walk a really fine line. These people coming in, franchising is a weird thing. It's like people say they want to be entrepreneurs, but they've got to follow this really strict guidebook with their business in order to be a franchise. And so they kind of act like teenagers a lot of the time. Like they want the rules, but they don't want to follow them. And so you're constantly trying to give them the whiffum, like what's in it for them, like why it's important. 100 people have done this before you and they found it to work really well. So why would you not do that? And the people that haven't been successful in franchising, or in our franchise, I should say, are usually the one, we haven't had a lot, thank goodness, but the ones are usually the ones that don't follow the rules or just buck the trends so much, and they don't honor the beauty of franchising, which is that you don't have to go through the school of hard knocks. You've got other people that have figured it out for you.
How do you monitor?
Oh, well, the webcams turned into an incredible tool for that. Like we now have high definition live video streaming, 16 to 18 webcams at every camp. And we have master access to all of them. So we have webcam evaluations. We have a whole team of folks that do webcam evals, and they give the information to the franchisee, like if they're monitoring the dogs correctly, because there's very strict ratios they have to follow in the yards, and they can't be talking on their cell phones. They can't like ever physically touch a dog, like to harm a dog. And so we do that, and then we do annual or biannual visits to the camps. And then we also have what's called barkbacks. And so it's an anonymous feature on our website and a toll-free line that customers can call in, or employees or franchisees, and kind of report on franchisees that aren't doing the right thing. But overall, our franchisees are amazing. I mean, that's the good news about having all these dog lovers, is they go overboard in treating the animals well. And so that's not a big concern usually. It's usually just branding stuff that they mess up on. So
we have a little time. I want to get back to technology a little. So the webcams were this huge innovation, and now I can't imagine doggy daycare without them. But what are some of the other ways that you've incorporated technology, and what did that path look like?
Oh my gosh, I kid around with people that I had no idea I was starting a technology company. I thought it was doggy daycare. Like I spend 80% of my days now dealing with technology stuff. Like we are launching a digital marketing platform called Roy that measures return on investment for all their marketing and advertising that they do at the camps. We've got Datadog, which is our point of sale system, which was a terrible, terrible journey going through creating our own software with a company that went bankrupt here in Boulder that designed customizable software for franchise systems, and it almost destroyed our company. Because if you can't check in a dog or check out a dog, or all of a sudden your system goes down on Christmas or New Year's Eve.
Hypothetically speaking.
Yeah, hypothetically speaking. You're in big trouble. So we've had to become software development experts. We've had to become SEO and digital marketing experts. So our website is really the hub for where all of our leads come in to the franchises. So about 1/3 of the customers that come to Camp Bow Wow come from the internet. Another 1/3 come from referrals, like from current customers. And then another 1/3 come from traditional marketing and advertising and PR. So The other thing that we've done is the iPhone app. We have an iPhone app that you can watch your dog on the webcams. And we're actually taking that to another level where you can make reservations and do some cool stuff on there. Or you can upsell your dog a bath while they're there at camp if you're gone. What else technology-wise? Gosh, all kinds of stuff. Facebook, we have a Facebook game that you can play where you have to keep Scout happy, or our little dog, or he destroys your house while you're gone.
And so is this something that Camp Bow Wow invests in and then gets fed out to the franchises when you know it's successful, or do the franchisees also invest in it?
It's kind of, yeah, it's shared. I mean, they do a lot of testing for us. They would say that anyway. But yeah, definitely we spend a tremendous amount of money, and we have a whole innovation team that works at Camp Bow Wow to always stay cutting edge and stay ahead of the game.
When did you stand up the innovation team?
We renamed the technology and marketing combined team innovation about a year ago. But we've actually had a technology department that I would call really what was the innovation team for about 5 years now.
And take us back to that decision to stand up the technology department. And in particular, I'm interested in, you mentioned the software system that can be expensive. How you guys have approached, I could just hear a discussion behind the closed doors, right? Which is, we are a doggy daycare company. We are not a technology company. No, we've got to do this. This is going to be our differentiating factor. How have those discussions played out?
Okay, so I think one of the gutsiest decisions we ever made as a company, and Becca, I don't know if you'll agree or not, because it was hell, but when this software company was going out of business, they gave us about 3 weeks notice and said, you're going to get this crap code, and you're good luck. We're all going away, and figure it out. And we're like, oh! And so this is 3 weeks before Christmas, at our busiest time of the whole year. And so Becca negotiated this hard-ass agreement with them that they could not shut down without making sure that we had another plan. And we got these awesome consultants that through my Vistage group. I'm in Vistage, that CEO, or I was in that CEO support group. And we put together this whiz-bang team of consultants within a week, and they dug in and saved that code and saved our butts and kept it alive. But then they realized how it was just held together. The database, I guess, just makes no sense, and it's all like taped together, like they like to say, with like Scotch tape and, you know.
Not even duct tape.
Yeah, not even duct tape. And it's taken 2 years to sort it all out but we made the decision that we were going to stick it out and not go to some cheap off-the-shelf solution that would have destroyed our ability to look as corporate at all the camps together and really keep everybody cohesive, because it's really important that we be able to see the data as it comes in. And so we actually just did this huge archiving project. It's been 2 years, and it was successful, and so we know that it's going to be okay now. But it took 2 years and about $500,000 to get to that point.
What kind of data are you relying on now?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's all the customer information. I mean, it's the dog information. It's the reservation information.
So you get information on all customers at the franchisees?
Yes.
Do you share that with the franchisees then?
Yes. Well, we actually own that data per the franchise agreement.
Okay.
But, you know, obviously they use it and...
Can you push advertising to it?
Yes.
And are you guys doing that now?
We're just starting with this new digital marketing platform. We just actually today got it to talk to the system so that we can now like send automated campaigns and pick and choose, like, you know, clients that haven't been in 90 days, send them a special postcard. And the franchisees are involved and paying for it, but we're running it all from a central, it's called M2M Strategies out of Atlanta that's doing it for us. It's really cool. If it works, we'll see.
Two personal questions before and I want to close by talking about some of the charity work, and then we'll open up. But your daughter is now?
Tori is 18, and she just started. She was committed to CU, and at the last minute she switched and went to Oregon, so she's a duck. So she's only been there a couple months now. But
when she realizes that she wants to be back, let us know. In terms of her experience, she's kind of grown up as the company's grown up over the years.
Yes.
Has she been involved? Have you involved her in the company?
Totally. Like, I remember sitting at a dinner with some potential franchisees, and she was 8 years old, and she said, "Is that in the UFOC?" Like, one question, I was just like, what? Like, oh my God, I've been taking her to too many business meetings. But she's been such a trooper, and she's just my little best friend. I mean, she's amazing, and she's so eloquent and speaks so well because she's grown up around, having to sell franchises and be in the business and meet franchisees and say, "Hi, my name's Tori Ganahl. I'm Top Puppy," is her title. So,
If she came back and said, "Mom, I want to be in the family business," you would say?
I'd make an exception for Tori. I'd figure it out. Because, I mean, it's just so in her blood. And, I mean, she just has been such a big part of it. I think she'd really like doing the PR and, like, event planning. It's like I see her doing, like, grand openings and things like that. I don't think she'd ever want to run the company. And I have talked to her about it, and she said, I don't want to do it, Mom. Like, she's seen how much work it's been, too.
And in terms of what's been satisfying for you, going back to handing out dog bones in Wash Park to really being part of the big data movement at this point, what's been some of the most satisfying parts of this journey?
Definitely the foundation. I mean, just like finding those dogs. I mean, we've placed over 10,000 dogs in homes over the last 5 years since we started the foundation, or 6 years, and through all the camps. Like, we foster dogs at all the camps, and I mean, that just warms my heart. And then we recently trained 2 therapy dogs to go live in Newtown, Connecticut with the Sandy Hook families, to be there for them permanently. And it's just, we've gotten to know all those folks. It made me cry, but just things like that where you see the healing power of animals and the connection with people, and knowing that all these dogs over the years that haven't had to stay at home, stuck at home without anybody, or stuck in a kennel like the old style kennels, or in the vet offices back in the back, that just makes me really happy. So we've got a lot more doggies out there to service, but we'll figure it out.
We open it to, let's open it up to audience questions. There's a Silicon Flatirons tradition of student questions first. So if there's a student with a question, we'll start with you.
Chris?
When you were first starting out, what were some of the most important things you learned in terms of branding and really like building that brand quickly?
Being super consistent and being really true to your vision. Like, so many people try and throw you off track or try and convince you, oh no, you should create the ad this way, or no, you need to shift the logo this way. And I just always knew, like, I had a really clear vision of what I wanted it to be, and I just didn't let people sidetrack me, and I'm glad I didn't.
Did you create your own logos and marks?
Yeah.
Do you still?
Yeah, well, my Uncle David, he actually is still working with me in some ways, but it's kind of sad. He got tongue and throat cancer a few years ago, and he's been the designer behind everything Camp Bow Wow for many years, the website, all of it. And so he can't work as much now, but he's always been able to interpret. Like, we have this really cool connection where I can say, I want Scout to be doing this, like barbecuing or something, I don't know, just something silly, and he'll come up with a logo, and it'll exactly fit like what I was thinking. And I mean, we have another designer on our team, and Reed's awesome, but David's really the essence of Camp Bow Wow, and we just had this connection. And I think that's really important too, is finding a designer that can interpret what's in your head. And you have to be so excited about it. You have to fall in love with your brand. But
Great. Other questions?
So what's the next big thing for you personally and for Camp Bow Wow?
Oh, thanks. So Camp Bow Wow, I think we're going to leverage the technology even more. We're going to have some fun with it and see what we can do around just bringing more technology into the camps and servicing clients more through in-home webcams when we do in-home pet care, and taking the webcams to a whole nother level where you can like track your dog, like where it can track a collar if you have a special thing, RFID check-in technology. We want to grow to about 500 units in the US, and then we have the intellectual property registered in Australia and the UK. So we'll probably go international pretty soon through multi-unit developers. But the big thing right now that's
So a
holding
unit
us...
being one franchise as one unit?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no. So multi-unit, we'd probably have one franchisee who owned maybe 25 to 50 units. So switch more from the one-on-one to the one to a lot of units. Because honestly, you guys, that's the only folks that have money these days. I mean, it's so hard to get capital and so hard to get SBA financing. You can't, I mean, you can grow maybe a couple units a month, but you can't get kind of past that tipping point without the big multi-unit developers at this point. So that's going to be a really important strategy we delve into this year. And then building the foundation and doing great things with that. I mean, my lifelong goal would be to end overpopulation of pets. Like, it's really unnecessary. It doesn't have to happen. If people would be really committed to not buying animals on the internet and not just adopting dogs that need homes and spaying and neutering their animals. And then on the other things that interest me, I think that politics is really something I'm passionate about, more about figuring out how to make people believers in free markets and capitalism and how it can do such amazing things for this world, and teaching people to fish rather than giving them a fish. I'm a true believer in that, and I don't quite know what that looks like yet, but I love what they do at the Unreasonable Institute, and I'd love to take what they do in business and put it towards social issues, like figuring out how to solve, foster care or immigration, or just having contests and letting people just use their brilliant minds to figure out the solutions instead of relying on the government to do it. So.
Or Senator Ganahl.
No, I don't think so. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'd rather be behind the scenes making everybody crazy.
So you have your first store, you kind of get it down the process, and you figure, this is working, it's profitable. I think a lot of people would stop it. At that point, it's great to have one store. What was kind of like the point where you realized, well, this process is working, we're going to replicate it? What made you go forward?
Can you hear that in the back? Okay.
Yeah, he asked why I didn't just stop when I was successful with the one store. And I'm very visionary, and I know this about myself now. I don't know that I could have defined it as well back then, but I think the reason franchising did work so well for me is because I love the brand and the strategic part of it and the growth. I don't like the day-to-day operations of managing, 15 to 18 employees at a camp and dealing with the issues that go on there and doing the bookkeeping. So franchising allows you to leverage other people's time and money to grow, and I think it was perfect for me also because I didn't have a lot of capital to invest to add more units. So it was a really good way for me to grow the business. And I had fun with it. It was really fun.
What benchmarks did you see that said, hey, this is, what point, how long into it before you?
If only I was that organized about it. It just felt really good, and it felt like there was a lot of momentum. And I hadn't even started making money at the first unit when I started the second unit, but the second unit took off so much quicker and did so well that the guy who was helping me look at franchising said, you're almost there, you can roll, it's a little early, but just go with it. And we did, mainly because we wanted to be the first to market in the pet boarding and daycare space to franchise. So.
Thank you.
Rich?
You said you guys become software development experts. Assuming that you didn't put that team together, or how did you find the person that put that team?
Well, I was in Vistage, which is a group of CEOs that you meet with. It's kind of an informal board of directors, and I'd been in that group for 5 years. And one of the guys owns a company called Sancio, which is a big tire warranty company out of Golden. Really cool guy. And he said, I got this guy, technology guy, in my back house who knows a lot. Let's see if he can put together a team for you or figure this out. Well, come to find out, he is best friends with one of Byron's, my first husband's, it was like one of his good friends. It was very bizarre, and he has done a tremendous job, and Scotty's taken the lead with his, it's called Lariat Professionals, and just put together this ragtag team of developers and database experts, and it just worked. It was really cool. They helped me sleep at night.
I'm just going to follow up with that question, talking about finding the right people to grow your business. I know you mentioned a little bit that there were some people along the way that tried to side rail your business. I was wondering if you could talk about finding people to help grow your business and also some things to watch out for.
Oh, goodness. I could write a whole book about that. And I still don't have all the answers. I've got a really good team now, but it was a lot of trial and error. And I actually found a consultant who really helped me understand different types of personalities and ways that people work together. And it doesn't really matter which archetype system you use, but I would encourage you to use some kind of way to categorize people. I can't remember what this one's called, but there's priest and king and server, and it helps you understand how people blend together and how to build a team that complements each other. We realized we had all these artisan scholars, which are really creative, cool people that have lots of ideas, but no follow through. They love their idea machines, but they don't have the follow through. So we needed to complement it with some people that were, what they call warriors, which just get stuff done. And so,
a very feudal system of categorization.
It's very bizarre, but it's the most amazing thing I've used in 13 years of running these businesses. It works like a charm. But I think really just giving people a short leash and lengthening it over time. Like use use consultants, but only with the intention of eventually like trying them out for a permanent fixture on your team. And really push people hard, because if they aren't willing to work really hard for you in that like first 6 months to a year, it's just going to go downhill from there, honestly. So I would say, try people on a very short lease, like contract basis or consulting basis, and make sure they're a good fit. Follow your gut, like on instinct, like, do I really want to hang out with this person every day for 12 hours a day? Because that's what you're going to have to do sometimes. And then, don't make promises that you can't keep, like to Jill's point. Like, this may not be forever, but let's see what magic we can make happen right now and see where this takes us. And make it exciting and fun for people to come to work every day. I mean, we all get to bring our dogs to work every day, which is really fun. It gets a little crazy. We all have baby gates up on our offices, so they can't.
Have you provided an ownership stake to any of your employees?
Yes. Yep, a few of them. Not a lot. I've held on to that equity for dear life. And so I've given about 11% in profits interest away, but I've never raised capital per se. I took a $100,000 loan from Colorado Enterprise Fund, and that's it.
So you still have 89%?
Yes. Yep. And the 11% is owned by some very near and dear people to me that I'm happy to give that money to because they helped me grow the business. So it's a cool feeling.
I have a question. You talked about the Unreasonable Institute and giving back and being innovative, and I'm wondering about sustainability in your business, and if you've thought about including sustainable strategies into your business platform, looking at things like resource use for water.
Yeah.
You guys have.
So for those in the back, the question relates to sustainability as part of the business.
Yeah, we do. In fact, in the way we design our facilities, we think about that a lot. We try and use natural light. We use very little water in cleaning our facilities. In fact, we use hardly any water to clean our facilities, and we use environmentally friendly chemicals because of the dogs also. We don't want to have anything that would hurt them. We always try and pick the best option. I mean, obviously we can't always pick something that's environmentally friendly, but the other thing we did a couple of years ago was met with a company, I can't remember what they were called here. They wanted to collect all the dog poop at our camps and create manure out of it and then have us resell it in the lobbies as manure. And we thought it was the coolest idea, and we wanted to make it work, but they couldn't handle the volume of poop that we had. But there is there's a really cool place in Boston called the Spark Park. Is that what it's called? Yeah, have you heard of it? And they actually run the dog park on dog poop, right? And they generate electricity.
Gas is released by poop or manure, and you can collect that gas and use it to fuel light systems.
So that could be part of the future plan of Camp Bow Wow, running the planet with dog poop. But yeah, it's pretty important to us because we care so much about animals, and the environment comes kind of with that. So.
You had mentioned that you did the fundraisers. I'm wondering other strategic partnerships that have worked for you.
Oh my goodness, we've had a lot of them over the years. Shoot, Becca, Tristan, can you guys help me? Strategic partnerships that we have with other companies and people, and
Tons.
yeah, like
Pictures,
we did Paramount Pictures, like Hotel for Dogs, and we did a couple other movies, like the puppy, Air Bud movies. We had Air Bud at one of our conferences, and then he did a halftime show for us at our fundraiser. And we had Benji come to another conference. We helped sponsor that movie. We did
all sorts of merchandising, pet shampoos.
yeah, we just had something really exciting happen actually around that. Becca, I don't even think you know this. We had Damon John from Shark Tank come speak at our conference recently, and he is, afterwards he called and said, do you want some help with your retail line? Because we haven't developed a Camp Hour retail line. And I was like, yeah. And so he's actually putting together a package for us to help us create our retail and get it pushed out to like Petco and PetSmart and outside of Camp Bow Wow as well. So
You obviously like the new initiative. So someone throws out an idea on the spot. Did you say yes?
pretty much.
How long will you let something go, and do you have a hard time saying this isn't working and killing it?
No, I probably have the opposite problem. Like, I sense really quickly if something's not working, and I'm just like, okay, we're done. We're out of here. We just partnered with some folks to make frozen yogurt for dogs, so that at the camps in the lobby we have little froyos. They're called Scout Scoop. because it's really hard to, intellectual property kind of runs your business, like finding names for things that people haven't already taken and figuring out how to, create brands around things that you can actually protect is really challenging. It's one of the hardest parts, I think, of building a franchise. But so, I thought, this is a really cool idea. I don't know if people are actually going to buy this stuff, like in the lobbies. And I was like, let's just go for it and try it and see. And right now I'd give it a 50-50 shot of working. They're selling some, but you got to kind of leave it up to the vendors too. Like, this is, your opportunity. You have to make it or break it, because they'll push back on us and be like, well, you have to make it happen. You have to sell. And you're like, no, we've got our own business to run. Like, if you want to leverage the opportunity, then you can, but you have to do the footwork. So, and a lot of vendors aren't willing to do that these days. So that's a hard thing to deal with.
I was just wondering, what's the funniest thing you've seen on a webcam?
You can only imagine. Yeah, doggy porn. The funniest thing is just when people will be in like Europe and they'll call and say, Rosie's ball is stuck in the corner and she can't get to it. Can you go help her out? Or I don't think Delilah's having a good time. She looks kind of tired. Can you move her to a different play yard? And they're like on the other side of the world, and you're like, really? Like, that's what you're worried? The dogs are fine. Like, people really worry, just kind of like kids, that when they leave their dogs, they're going to be really upset and sad. Very few of them are, you guys. They just go full out into the play yard and have a great time. And I hate to tell you this, but they don't think about you too much. Probably at night in the cabin with their comfy cot and their campfire tree. But
You mentioned earlier that your brother said, let's pull out the business plan.
mm-hmm.
How far out did you have the business plan? And also, where'd you get the name?
We came up with the name because we wanted something very Colorado. We didn't ever think we'd have, more than actually one when Brian and I wrote it. Or no, I think we maybe thought we'd have 3 or 4 in Denver. So we made it very Colorado, mountain lodgy. That's where the camp theme came up with. And then, so Brian and I wrote the business plan about 6 months before he died. And we started looking at places, but he was a senior in college, and we didn't have any money. And here we are talking to landlords, like, can we have 100 dogs in your place? And they're like, are you crazy? Back then,
You can't have one.
No. And that's one of the things that I think helped build Camp Bow Wow so much, too, that I didn't talk much about, was zoning. We dug in and became experts in zoning right off the bat. Like, even when there were only 3 or 4 of us on the team, we were flying all over the country presenting at planning commission meetings and city council meetings. And it was all about waste, drainage, and noise. Like, we had to get past those objections with first the landlord and then the zoning folks. And that's why I think we were able to grow so much where the other folks couldn't, is we figured that out.
What about that process in terms of zoning allowed you to be effective where others weren't?
We were just tenacious, and we were really creative with how we solved the problems. Like, we did a sound study at one of the camps where we had the sound engineer come in and amplify dog barking on a tape really loud, and then measured the decibels to use it as zoning hearing. Or we had drainage experts, sound off on. We got really funny and creative about how we approached it, and just really try to get to people's hearts. Like, just give us a chance, and we made a lot of weird deals. Like, if it's too noisy, then we'll shut down or we'll move. And we didn't have to. It worked out pretty well, but thank God.
So one final question. You go back and talk to yourself when you're at CU. Mm-hmm. One piece of advice that you wish you'd known then that you know now.
Don't be so hard on yourself that you have to figure it all out right now. Like, just have some fun, experiment, definitely try your own business. Like, even if it's a little itty bitty one just on the internet, you've got to at some point try the experience. It's crazy. It teaches you so much. It's so empowering, and you'll either find out you are an entrepreneur or you're not, and you'll be happy either way that you did. But it's, I was just so hard on myself. Like, I had to go out and figure everything out right away and know exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And that's so unrealistic when you think about it. And so just play and have fun and do a lot of internships. Like, I think internships are a great way to experiment and try different things. And what's that guy who did a different job like every week for a year or something? Have you guys heard about that book? It's kind of cool. Like, he contracted with, or he just worked for different companies with the intention that he was going to try out living the life of whatever the employee was. And he had a grand time doing it. But I think he figured out what he wanted to do too. I don't remember the end of the book, but...
Well, this is such a remarkable story that's still being written. Many thanks for coming back and sharing it with us. For those of you who can join, we'll have a reception immediately out, but please help me give a warm thank you to Heidi.